Morality is not a command, but an invitation. Not a threat, but a reminder of who you are. My dear sisters and brothers, there is goodness in all of us. There is goodness in everyone. And yet, it is our experience that people go astray. They get lost. They do bad things. Not because they are inherently evil, because they forget who they are and what they are capable of. Let's say you are in a relationship. It could be a friendship or something serious, or you are married for life. And when you want to bring about a change, a growth, a transformation in the other, there is no use nagging or criticizing. The truth is that when you love someone, when someone feels loved, she or he feels the need to come alive, to change their ways, and to be the person they were always meant to be. There is in us light and darkness. There is in each one of us goodness and evil. There is that saint and sinner in all of us. And that brings us to the gospel of the day, to our famous character, Zacchaeus. What a character. I envy that guy. Do you realize that he was the only guy that Jesus looked up to? When everyone shunned him, called him a tax collector, a crook, a cheat, a rogue, a traitor. And he was, in one word, a sinner. So many labels. You know, youngsters, our world today, even our nation at this time, is so busy labeling people. Oh, this one, a Republican. That one, a Democrat. This one from this country. That one from the other country. Oh, they are from this particular city. It's so easy to label people. And we do not know what battle that person is battling within. And so was Zacchaeus. Look at the guy. He wants to see Jesus. He is looking, seeking, searching. He wants a relationship, and the beauty is that he doesn't know it. The good news, God knows it. And so he goes straight to that sycamore tree. And we are told by Luke that Jesus is always on a journey. Even if you forget everything, remember this. Jesus is all the time on a journey to Jerusalem. And the beauty of Jesus is that he pauses, that he breaks his routine, that he allows himself to be disturbed and intruded by people with needs and people who are needy. And he looks into their eyes. He calls them by name. And he shares with them himself. Zacchaeus, come down quickly. Look at that haste, that earnestness, that intentionality of Jesus. For today, I must stay at your house. And what does the Lord do? He goes to the house and settles himself comfortably and reclines at table, and he breaks bread with Zacchaeus. When you break bread with someone, you break down the barriers between you and the other. When you eat with someone, you make the other your family. And here is Jesus doing just that. When everyone around Zacchaeus is pointing a finger, judging, condemning, convicting, isolating, separating, and segregating Zacchaeus. Repetition is good. And Jesus pauses, looks into his eyes, and calls him by name, and begins a relationship with Zacchaeus. And Zacchaeus, the so-called traitor, a sinner, is a transformed man, a changed person. A growth comes about. Now let's go to the start. Zacchaeus goes up the tree because he was short in stature, physically, vertically challenged. So there is this short guy, physically, and we understand socially, and probably spiritually. And then he comes into contact with Jesus. Look at the change, the transformation, the conversion, the growth. All of a sudden you find a tall Zacchaeus who rises. And by the way, Luke would use the very same word that he uses to describe the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. And Zacchaeus rose and said, "Behold, Lord, I give half of my property to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone, I'll pay back 4 times over." Change comes about when a person is loved. Change comes about and conversion happens only when a person feels cherished and treasured. And the Lord does just that. He pauses, he looks into his eyes, calls him by name, and spends time with him. As everyone around is labeling one another, what are you youngsters going to do? Are you going to live in this society, in this world that is filled with anger, hatred, suspicion? There is so much of division in our midst. And we are the United States of America. Really? The country that I embraced as my own 20 years ago. Where are we? And what are we heading to? Morality is not a command, it's an invitation. Not a reprisal, but a reminder of who you are. What makes that change possible in Zacchaeus is that Christ looks at him and sees the forgiving possibility that you could become and gives him a second chance. And do we do that as individuals, as a culture, as a nation? St. Augustine felt loved by God. And he who was a sinner, a wayward soul, all the time restless, he got it. Mary Magdalene was possessed by 7 demons, but she would understand the love that God has for her. And so does Zacchaeus today. How about you and me? When will we get it? You are loved. That's what the Lord tells us all the time. He pauses for you and for me every time. He looks into our eyes and he calls each one of us by name, and he comes and breaks bread with us. His Spirit lives in our hearts. And he sees us broken, but he finds us beautiful. He knows who we are, that we are broken, that we are vulnerable, that we are sinful, but he always sees the forgiving possibility that you and I could become. And so he gives us another chance, Still another chance. Yet another chance. And as we come back to him beating our breasts, all he says to us is, come home, I missed you, and I love you. Lord, I did this and this, but I love you. But Lord, I did so many things. I wandered so far from you. Oh, I love you all the more. Heaven is no heaven without you in it. You are that Zacchaeus. I am that Zacchaeus. We are the Zacchaeus that Christ pauses for, looks into our eyes, and calls us by name. When will we get it?